Hello. Well, as you can see, my roses are still going strong, but autumn is definitely here. And I have been desperately trying to finish the painting of the lathe before my garage gets too damp and unpleasant. So this is something I should have done actually in the summer months when it was drier and warmer. I should say that generally speaking, I'm not in favour of people who tart up lathes just by giving them a paint job, because it does absolutely nothing for the accuracy or performance of the lathe. But since I've got it all apart, I'm doing that anyway, and until I've got the lathe back together I can't do the proper tests on alignment and so on that I obviously want to do. So this video is mainly, I'm afraid, about painting, which is rather boring, but we also take a look at the inside of the two vertical pillars that support the lathe bed. Well, I'm just chiseling this bedding compound off. That's most of it off. Right, this is the headstock end. I'm preserving these shims which I've marked. I think they're all the same thickness in fact, but we'll just try in case. Well, so that's cleaned that up, and the other one. What I wanted to do was to degrease this. So I've made a Delrin stopper to go in there, and then because I don't know where these bolts are going to, I'm putting some blue tack in, because I certainly don't want degreasant and water going into the electric box, which is down here. So I'm just hoping that this blue tack will serve to prevent that. I think probably those bolt holes just go straight down through this hollow rectangular base, and we'll probably entirely miss the electrical cabinet, which isn't that deep, but I'm just being on the safe side. And I'm able to fit a bucket delicately balanced here so that when I do drain it, it goes into the bucket rather than into the old coolant reservoir. This sodding levelling screw is rusted to buggery. And I can't get a socket on it because the gap isn't high enough. I'm going to have it out and clean it one. I've got it up. It's just an M12 bolt. Actually, it says Atlas 8.8, so that's fine. There's something wrong with the thread here because it keeps binding. I can get it, or maybe this bolt is bent.
Actually, the problem is that the start of the thread at the end of the bolt gets gunged up by virtue of being screwed into the floor or screwed at the floor, and then hence when you come to try and withdraw the bolt, it doesn't go well unless you clear the thread or running a die over the bolt first.
Well, I've tried to level it approximately on these surfaces, but I can't get it completely level. Probably because this is not in a... These two things are not in a plane, lying in a plane, is what I think. And some of my blue tape appears to be leaking because there's a bit on the floor down there. But anyway, carry on with what I was doing before, which is degreasing as best I can. Put it back in. See if I can get this bucket out. Yes. Right. Right. Some more water. And yes, the bucket is in place. So let's just leave it without messing and see how it drains now. Well, I suppose the truth of the matter is that a flat surface drains exceedingly slowly. Well, a couple of millimetres water there, a couple of millimetres there. Plenty there. No, it's just not flat, anywhere near flat, is it? No, I don't know what I can do about that because the whole thing is welded together. You just have to put up with it. That is level. Slightly high there. And I can't do it diagonally. Slightly high here, and that's level. I don't see that I can do much better than that anyway. But it's just not. It's going to drain, is it? It's not going to drain completely. So I just wind both of these very slightly up, stiff. So, it's dry here. And it's dry here, and it's dry there. And everywhere else is wet. It's dry in this corner. You see it's wet here, so if I put it any more that way to get that bit running this way, it's going to pile up here. And an enormous amount of water here. That will be deflected when this is bedded in though. And likewise here. So I've just been cleaning up the sides of the base of this thing whilst it's on its side. I'm not planning to repaint the base. It looks fairly okay to me. So we can see that they paint the whole thing with this undercoat, then install everything and then spray it with the top colour. This micro switch, which is part of the emergency stop thing, it says Burgess, Gateshead, England, and MV3 HM6S. This rubber seal is perished and this seal is split. So, although it's probably still working, I need to do something about that.
Obviously this switch is no longer made and there's no chance of getting replacements for various bits of it.
Well, it seems as this was originally made in two halves anyway, but it's split there along the join. I'll never be able to get another one of these, so maybe I can glue that up with some rubber glue. Well, I think that worked okay. Well, this is the back side of the lathe base, and the electric box is on the right there. You can see that there are 4 cables going into the side of this upright part, including one that you can't really see, which is connected to that micro switch down there. So where do they go when they get inside this box? Well, as it's on its side, we can have a look now. They just come through a grommet or whatever and then pass across and go into the electrical box, which is this bit here. Also of interest is to look at the linkage here, which comes down from... That's the linkage that comes down from the red knob that turns the lathe forwards or backwards or off. And it's pivoted there, I guess, and runs across again into the electrical box where it operates a switch. I feel a bit like the workers building a medieval cathedral. Should one not bother about the bits that people will never see on the grounds that there's not much point? Or should one say that everything is within the eyes of God and therefore we should do as good a job in the bits that people can't see as we do to the bits that they can see? Well, I've just cleaned that up as best I can, and it'll have to do. So if we look at the other end, this pillar is relatively empty. All we've got there is a mounting for the foot brake, some kind of cross brace. And the 2 cross members you see up there welded onto the underside of the swarf tray are for the mounting of the lathe bed. Well, I've put the base the right way up again, and I've done a second clean and sanding of it, try and get back to a firm surface. Haven't removed all the paint because some of the paint seems to be quite well adhered, but I've still got some rust in there, particularly around places like here. I've just put a blow lamp on these to kind of dry them out, but they're actually welded underneath, so it doesn't matter very much except from the point of view of trapping moisture in it and making the paint rust from underneath, which would not be good.
Well, this is an epoxy undercoat that I'm applying, or a primer, more precise. I've blocked up the bolt holes with glue tack for the meanwhile. We're just painting over everything. And I've also recorded exactly where the shims were in relation to the edge of the whole thing, so that I can put them back where they were. I'm not a champion painter, but this is just going to have to do. Well, I've put the primer coat on. Looks alright from a distance, but if you look at it at the right angle, you can see that my brush strokes are not exactly smooth. I think I actually needed some thinner in this paint, but I haven't got the appropriate thinner, so I didn't use one. Anyway, it'll have to do. Well, I've just applied the first top coat of Paragon enamel paint. It's a semi-gloss finish, but because it's still wet, it's pretty high gloss at the moment. Also, you can still see that the undercoat was not flat underneath, although I did sand it very gently. The problem is that the metal itself is not that, well, one of the problems is the metal itself is not that flat, so had I sanded it more vigorously, I'd have to put another coat of primer on, because it would have just gone through to bare metal where the metal is sticking up, so I decided against that. Well, I'm using this 3 kilowatt heater to just prevent any condensation on this thing whilst it's being painted. Alright, that's all the painting I'm doing on that tray. Taking about 4 days.